I'll begin this afternoon's session with a brief introduction. Welcome to the Canadian Institute of Forestry's National Electronic Lecture Program. My name is Sharon Yang, and I will be hosting today's session. Today is Wednesday, March 20th, 2024, and this is the seventh session in the e-lecture series entitled Sharing Knowledge on Some Key Initiatives Happening Across the Canadian Forest Service. This series is brought to you by the Canadian Forest Service and Canadian Wood Fibre Centre. The CIF-IFC is very pleased to collaborate and host these webinars. For today's session, we're very pleased to have Sébastien Meunier, who will give an exciting presentation titled Update of Silvics of North America Initiative. To kick things off, Sébastien is a forest engineer that graduated from Laval University in 1998 and received his master's in silviculture in 2000. He dedicated his career to hardwood forest management till 2022, when he joined the Canadian Wood Fibre Centre to work as a Canadian coordinator for the Update Silvics of North America project. With that, I will now pass it over to Sébastien.
Thank you, Sharon. I'll share my screen. You're supposed to be seeing my presentation. Everything good?
Yeah, it looks good.
Excellent. So thanks, Sharon, again, and thanks to the Canadian Institute of Forestry for hosting this CFS lecture series. Today, I will present the work we are doing on the Update Silvics of North America project. But first, I wish to acknowledge that since I'm in Gatineau, Quebec, I'm on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin-Anishinaabe Nation. I recognize that we all live in different places, and therefore, you may be living in a different Indigenous traditional territory. I encourage you to take a moment to think about this and how you feel about the land we all share in this first day of spring. I'm here to present a project that I consider important because it allows anyone interested in trees to quickly access a synthesis of the information available for the different species across North America. At the beginning of my career, I worked to synthesize the knowledge for the main tree forest species in Quebec. This was my first important contact with the Silvics, and I've been referring to it for over 25 years. First of all, here's the project goal. We want the Silvics to remain a key reference for North American silviculture based on the latest scientific advances. We want to modernize this tool and increase the representation of species from across North America. And to succeed, we need help from those who work on those species. My presentation plan is quite simple and is intended to help you keep track of the past, present, and future of the Updated Silvics of North America project. For me, it's important to understand where you've come from to better see where you're going. The first volume on your left was entitled Silvics of Forest Trees of the United States. It was an edited compendium of research papers describing the silvicultural characteristics of 127 commercial trees in the United States. These documents were prepared independently by specialists from the USDA Forest Service Experimental Station. This initial work took them 10 years to complete and was published in 1965. The Silvics of North America was published in 1990 and includes 195 trees. These account for most of the commercially important trees in the US, Canada, and some of those in Mexico and the Caribbean islands, making them a must for virtually all of North America. This review was carried out by researchers at the USDA Forest Service in collaboration with universities and other researchers in the US. The chapters of the previous document were revised, and the project also took 10 years to complete. It is an important reference document that brings together in one place all the knowledge on the habitat, life history, special uses, genetic of the major species of North America. But the Silvics are getting old. They were produced on paper and a long time before the internet came into our lives. Let's take two cases. I'm from Quebec, and white spruce and red oak are some of my favorite species. The 5 most recent records of white spruce are from 1988. Personally, I was in grade 3 when they were published. For this species, prized by forest industry, nearly 3/4 of the references predate the 1980s. For red oak, the chapter presents only 33 references, of which almost 20% were in the 1980s. A quick Google Scholar search has yielded more than 33,000 results for each species since 1989. And it's fun to see that the first one that goes out for the white spruce, it's the Silvics itself. My previous examples illustrate the extent to which the knowledge has been generated in the last 35 years of research in forestry and plant biology. This is also the case across Canada. There are too many logos of Forest Science Institute and Center, but I wanted to highlight the diversity and quality of the research that is done in forest universities across Canada. I think that those results could be better integrated into the Silvics if there were more chapters produced by Canadian authors or collaborators. We believe that foresters need an up-to-date synthesis of knowledge to support their practice. The current project aims to address this need, and this is an important North American collaboration between the USDA Forest Service, Canadian Forest Service, and the Mexico's National Forestry Commission. The project has been presented and supported by the North American Forestry Commission's Silvicultural Working Group. In Canada, it's supported by the Canadian Council of Forest Ministers, and it's governed by the Canadian Wood Fibre Centre and the Canadian Forest Service. But before embarking on such an undertaking, it was necessary to make sure that the users still needed it. 3 studies have been carried out in the United States. Key takeaways include that the Silvics remain an important reference for modern silviculture, that the level of details in the 1990 Silvics is still relevant. The most useful update would be related to species range map, their best in relation to climate change and variability, and also ecosystem services that were not addressed before. In Canada, we conducted a targeted consultation with some stakeholders in the forest sector on the need to revise the Silvics. It was found that Silvics remain a valuable tool for practicing foresters, researchers, and students, and that it's still useful despite the availability of other sources of information. Some people wonder why update the Silvics when each province has its own silvicultural guide. But the development of each guide that provides references is based in part on the Silvics. And these guides are getting old too. I worked earlier on the development of the Quebec's one, and they are more than 10 years old now. And to my knowledge, no update project has been announced or is underway. We want to bring the Silvics into the digital age, transfer them from PDF files to a new digital platform accessible for different consultation formats. Text will be available in English, but also in French and Spanish, ensuring equal access for users throughout North America. The integration of the latest knowledge related to climate change is a major asset that silvicultural guide have not yet addressed. Finally, we would like the chapters to be revised on a regular basis to incorporate new available knowledge. Take less than 35 years to update the next one. Here's an overview of how the project works. The leadership committees provide oversight from national level partners across the 3 countries. To date, the project has involved more than 150 members from government and academic sectors. The core committee has created the new chapter structure and provides peer review of the chapter. The project support team is responsible for project facilitation, and a maintenance team will manage the long-term upkeep of the project. Each species will be the subject of an independent chapter, which will fall under one of the 3 categories of species group. A new category has been created for the exotic and invasive species, which are becoming increasingly important across North America. We still need a representative from Canada to help coordinate the exotic and invasive species group if you're interested. While the 1990 version covered 195 species, we are targeting 418 species with the US now. Most of the section coordinators or co-leads were involved in the revising of the content of the chapters for the new version of the Silvics. They are responsible for orchestrating the review of their section content with their team. All the Canadian members are highlighted in yellow. So we've got Canadian co-leads for every section to coordinate the review teams. The project support committee is the only one that includes members paid by the project. All the others collaborators do that on their own time. Each country supports its coordinator. The project has also hired an editor-in-chief as well as a technology development manager who works closely with the USDA Forest Service Web Development Office that support the overall web development of the project. Each chapter is divided into 12 sections to help with the review. The content of those sections has been reviewed and expanded to meet the needs of users. The major agents have been separate into different sections for insects and disease, wildland fires, drought, and additional disturbances like wind, ice, frost damage, grazing. There are 3 new sections that have been added. Urban forestry, knowledge gap that were highlighted by the authors during their writing, and some appendices for every section if there is some information that is important but too long to be addressed in the section. And the section size is limited. The aim is being to have a synthesis of the knowledge available to the practitioner, not a review of all the literature available for a topic. To ensure consistency in the content presented for each species, a detailed chapter outline guides the authors through the drafting process. This plan has been available on the project website since May 2023. The Distribution and Environmental Condition team has prepared maps and graphs illustrating the data available for the main species. I say the main species because enough data should be available in the combined forest inventory of Canada, Mexico, and the United States to model the future distribution of those species. This new information is available to lead authors throughout the USDA Forest Service website. Maps are provided that show raw data abundance, current habitat quality, future habitat quality, and future migration potential under 2 different climatic scenarios. The models and maps are based on the best available forest inventory data provided by the 3 countries and currently accept scientific techniques. Therefore, the information provides a snapshot in time representation of current knowledge. A manuscript is in preparation to present the methodology used to create the range maps and the GIS data of the 20 kilometers aggregated species abundance, model current and future habitat, and colonization likelihood will be included in the Forest Service Research Data Archive later this year. Now the chapter production. After an initial call for proposal in June 2023, we received 94 applications for chapter writing from chapter writing teams. Unfortunately, some teams competed for the same species. So as a result, we have only 79 chapters in production. There's still time to apply to be the author of a chapter. We have 339 targeted species left, but we will come back to this later on in the presentation. As of March 12 this year, we have about half of the 31 targeted Canadian coniferous chapter in production. 5 of those are from Canadian teams. We have a third of the target Canadian deciduous in production, but only 5% written by Canadian team. And for the exotic and invasive targeted species, more than 70% is in production, but none is led by a Canadian. We also have 3 fast-track chapters in production that were launched in June. Those will be available this summer. For regular chapter, the authors have 1 year to submit a full first version of their chapter. So 3 of 7 is right now in its first round of the review process. A big thanks to the participant from Quebec that currently represent 100% of the Canadian contribution to the project. It is also important to highlight the phenomenal involvement of the Université du Québec en Abitibi-Témiscamingue, whose members are involved in 5 of the 7 chapters. I took the predominant 3 species from the different forest regions of Canada to list the major 3 species and the chapter in production. As you can see in the east, we have red spruce and balsam fir that are in production, while yellow birch and red maple are still available. In southern Quebec and Ontario, eastern white pine, eastern hemlock, and northern white cedar and sugar maple are in production, while red pine, red oak, beech, black walnut, and hickory are still available. If we move on the northern part of the country, white spruce, black spruce, and jack pine, also trembling aspen are in production, while tamarack, white birch, and willow are still available. Heading west to the Rockies, Douglas fir adds to the list of species in production, while lodgepole and ponderosa pine, Engelmann spruce, and subalpine fir are still available. And finally, on the west coast, western red cedar, western hemlock, and Sitka spruce are still available, while western wild pine added to the production list. How to get involved in chapter writing? We have been accepting application on an ongoing basis since July 2023. You just have to go to our website and consult the file list of assigned and available chapters. Your species is available, build your team, and if necessary, call on the pool of co-authors from the project, but without any guarantee from us that we could provide one co-author. Your species is already assigned. Nothing prevents you from contacting the main author to offer your collaboration. Or if your specialization is linked to one of the section, you can contact the Canadian co-lead of that section to be a potential reviewer or register as a potential co-author or reviewer in our pool. Participation is free, but we don't pay anybody. All are welcome: master's student, PhD student, professors, foresters, and retirees. It's a good opportunity to build a multi-generational team from diverse backgrounds, and also a great project to carry out in the laboratory that will give you the credit as a peer review publication. Talking about lab universities, the project coordination team is working with the university team to develop a graduated symposium. Discussions are also underway to see if writing a chapter for the Silvics could be the subject of a special course in the final year of an undergrad program. The university team is waiting for the fast-track chapter to assess the amount of work that would be involved in writing the chapter for the Silvics. Here are the 16 coniferous and the 2 exotic and invasive species not in production by March 12th. They are tagged in our database as Canada and US shared species, and these are the ones that are targeted to be in the final product. And the 27 deciduous species not in production. If one of those species is the one you could write on, just build your team and apply for it. The review process of the Silvics looks like what you've probably seen in a journal, in a peer-reviewed journal paper. When the chapter arrives, a section co-lead is designated for that species and find a team member who is qualified to carry out the review. This member will then return the revised document to the co-lead of his section for validation. Once the content of each section has been reviewed and validated, it will be revised again with respect to the content of all sections by one of the co-lead from the chapter species group and a member of his or her team. If a revision is required, it will be possible to resubmit sections that require change, but up to a maximum of 2 times. The process will then continue to edition and translation, which may also require feedback to the authors. The updated Silvics chapters will only be available online. The first chapters will be available this summer. The technology development team is working on the website platform and the smartphone version. The chapters will be published initially in English, then translated into French and Spanish. I'm giving you here a sneak peek of the website under development. The homepage of the website, as well as the phone format, will allow you to search for the term of your choice. We got the search engine. For example, here, if we type fur in, we'll get the result for the species that will appear first, and then every time fur that comes in, the website will be listed below. If we select the Pacific fur over here, you'll get the detailed page of the chapter with quick access button to the different section and some picture related to the tree. The different section will be accessible in accordion format by clicking down the pages. It will be easy to retrieve the chapter citation or to export the chapter as a PDF file for network-free access. We encourage feedback and opportunities for improvement, so we plan the future to submit corrections or bugs. I wish we have more Canadian lead authors that join the project. You can also get involved with the exotic and invasive species group as the Canadian co-lead. You can submit your name to be a member of a section review team or in our co-author list for chapter writing on different species or sections. If you know anyone who might be interested in participating, please feel free to share the information. Thank you for your attention, and I hope I've triggered your interest in this important project. I would be happy to answer any question you may have today or later by email. Thank you.
Thank you, Sébastien. That was a great presentation. Before we proceed to answer the questions, let's take a moment to fill out the post-webinar survey. So I'm just going to launch it now. Give me one moment. Okay, Sébastien, are you ready for the questions?
Yeah.
So you have the Q&A pod open, I guess.
Okay, so I've got Jody who's writing, I am involved in one of the chapter for a non-commercial uncommon species. The Canadian federal and provincial inventory has only 2 plots with occurrence, but there's a lot of other data confirming presence, absence, collected through other source and checked for reliability. Today, the US Special Mapping Team will only consider FIA compliant data, but the resulting maps for Canada are extremely inaccurate if the 100 of non-FIA data points are not included. In this coordinating team, be able to address issues like this rather than individual species team trying to resolve them. Likely, we aren't the only one facing that challenge. Oh, that's new information for me. I'll have to take that to the team to see what can be done about it. It's a 3-nation project. The data should be shared across the three countries. And unfortunately, right now, we do not have access to every data that is available. But I'll take the question and I'll get you back personally. So Marks, this is a great work based on the limitation on funding in Canada. Is there any funding being provided by the US Forest Service? No. When the project was launched in July 2020, when the question of funding came up, it stalled the project. So the decision was made that it was an unfunded project. So I'm paid by the Canadian Forest Service on the regular fund of the Canadian Wood Fiber Center. There's no funding available to pay for authorship as of now. So it might change in the future, but for now on, it's a voluntary base production. Please explain how the species list rose from 190 in the 1990 to the 418 today. At first, it was the principal commercially usable species that were listed. So they added species from the 1975 version to the 1990. And then up to now, we've targeted those 418 species, and there are more on the Mexican side. For Canada, if I remember well, we've got 79 species that are listed. That's the most part of our commercial species. And there's the definition between a tree and a shrub. So we limited ourselves to trees. But if somebody knows a species that is not in the targeted species list, he can also apply to propose a species and then create the chapter for this species. So we're not limiting ourselves to the targeted 418 species. We can get more. We just focus on those species at first. Got Carolyn. Can you speak a little more about how future climate change scenario will be integrated? Will there be range distribution map made for every species? As long as we have localization data in the database to map those species, we will use the model that were created by the range and map team to generate future habitat for those species. But right now, we've got the two scenarios that were presented, SSP 4.5 and 8, if I do remember well. And it's in the slide. And right now, the others get information on how the maps were created and the data that were analyzed. It's not published yet, but the manuscript is going under the final revision by the team. So it's going to be published soon.
Sebastian, I think there's one more question in the Q&A pod. Yeah.
More of a suggestion, the list of species not being studied may be of interest to Indigenous nations. Yeah. You may consider reaching out to our colleagues in CFS Indigenous Group for interested authors. Nice point. Thanks.
There's one more question, actually. If you scroll down, it's from Ken Farr.
Oh, Ken, you're such a lovely one. Ken is a co-worker in Ottawa. What's the criterion difference between shrub and a tree? I think if it reaches, I'm not sure if it's 3 or 7 meters, but I'll need to go and check back in the work that was done before I joined the project. So I'm lacking of knowledge on that point. Thanks, Ken.
All right, if there are no more questions, I would like to bring this session to a close. Thank you all for participating in our CIF electronic lectures. And once again, thank you very much to Sébastien for this great presentation. Bye, everyone.